planet's on fucking fire.
Welcome back to Backyard Politics. I'm Nikki.
I'm Maddie.
And we are honored today because this is our first interview on Backyard Politics. We have Shelley here. She's going to tell us a little bit about direct democracy.
Sharif did explain an amazing concept of how a general strike would work, and I wanted to touch on that.
Yes.
Right now, we are calling it the umbrella concept. Currently, umbrella concepts deal with ideas, and it's just encapsulating them all underneath, and then they're covered by everything. So as an umbrella looks, there's one point at the top, but then it branches out to a bunch of other sections and encompasses everybody within. But instead of separating people by things that divide them, like place or color or religion and other stuff that divides people, focus on the divisions that can combine people, like their ideas, their beliefs. Everyone wants a UBI. So there's UBI tax reform is one bubble. Healthcare is another bubble. Election accountability, universal education. These are all like free speech. Right now we have 3 that we're working on building up, and that's free speech, healthcare, and it's workers' rights. But hang on, I think I have the image. Let me pull up the image really quick.
Yeah, sure.
I want to make sure I say it right. Oh yeah, unions and a living wage. So that would be like Congress for the essential workers, unions, Teamsters, healthcare would play things like Whole Washington, March for Medicare for All, Force the Vote. Free speech would be groups like Gray Zone, Status Quo, All Independent Media on Rockfin. And because these are people that are passionate about their about what they're due. It's in their living. It's more like you're going off of the power of self-preservation, and that's what you're appealing to. You're appealing to their self-preservation because, like, you and Maddie are independent media with Backyard Politics. Mm-hmm. You guys are a very small channel in comparison to like Kyle Klinsky and Crystal Ball.
Yeah.
But now imagine a place where you guys can all work together to not just build legislation for free speech, but you could just kind of have each other's back in a way, like report problems to notice so they can be aware of them. They could go through, and I'm not a free speech. I don't know a lot about free speech. I know it's necessary, but all that stuff considered with free speech and journalism and censorship and the fight against censorship, it would be a place for you guys to get together and hash it out like once a week. Oh, the puppy.
Yeah, like networking.
Yes. It'd be like a network by issue under the umbrella concept, and then each network would have like a representative who, it doesn't always have to be the same person, but just like a representative that like takes notes, submit them, and then the umbrella concept kind of goes into a general strike and the direct democracy thing with I've been called with the People's Legislature. I've been calling it the People's Assembly. I've been working with a group called By the People, which they also helped come up with the umbrella concept. So I think it's going to kind of turn into like a By the People thing. And it just has like right there, they can just allow an area for everybody to network with one another. But in a way that, how can I word this? But in a way that's beneficial for the whole picture. So the way the general
Sounds like
strike,
socialism.
oh, it's a little bit beyond socialism, actually.
I didn't mean it in a bad way.
it's it's a lot.
Yeah.
The so the Free Speech Network would go through and they would develop legislation for a general strike. They would keep everyone informed, up to date on like a censorship and how that's going, where to post, where not to post, when to post to get the best out there, and just all that minor stuff. And because that's what the details are everything.
Mhm.
So in relation to how that'd work with a general strike is Sharif had like the nicest version of it, and I love him for that. But I made it a little bit more hardcore. What I said was, so we all agreed to have a general strike on said date. I just threw out June 1st because that'd give us 30 days before the eviction moratoriums come to an end,
Mhm.
and then everyone goes out in their streets.
Yeah.
So like June 1st, we have 10 pieces of legislation from 10 different issues. So we're talking about free speech, but it'd also be like universal housing, healthcare, election accountability, like just 10 issues. And each of those 10 issues would put forward one piece of legislation. And then we would demand that Congress use their lawmaking authority to pass the legislation. And we'd be totally fair to them. We know how difficult this is. So they'd have from like 5 a.m. on Monday morning to 5 p.m. Monday night. And if they fail to do so, we just released 10 more pieces of legislation at 5 p.m. on Friday night. And then we again strike another week. And we just continue the process until Congress passed all of the pre-drafted pieces of legislation.
I love it. That's really like well thought out, well structured.
I'm not against that. Right now they have zero accountability.
Yeah.
So this would be a good,
And it really, oh, what was that?
it'd just be a good way to whip them into shape. Do your damn job, basically.
And it operates the same as this. So these, the representatives that write the legislation, or maybe they want to just put forth some good people in each network, that's what would build up the first group in the Citizens Trust that would run the people's legislature. Because a general strike would take more than 106 million people to pull off. Like, let's be realistic. It's going to take a lot of people. It's going to take networking. It's going to take all that.
Mhm.
With this concept, the people that participate in the general strike, you just have them get on favor, and then either during the general strike or after the general strike, depending on if Congress actually wants to participate or not, we could just pass the laws anyway. It would just be 1 to 2 years before the laws become laws, is all. So either way, the legislation would get through. It would just be how long.
Yeah. As far as like moving forward, next steps in getting people on board and organized, do you see like, not to like hold anybody obligated, but do you see like this concept being more on somewhat of a schedule? Like you were talking about the 52 weeks of the year, the 52 options to get legislation passed, but do you think it would be productive or counterproductive to be like, okay, week's end is coming up, we are going to put something forward that we agree on? Like, you know what I mean? Like schedule, like, all right, not like flavor of the week style, but in a way. Do you think that would be productive to approach it that way? Like, okay, guys, rally up. It's time to do this thing.
Depends on the implementation, because if it's not implemented right, it will be horrible. But the reason that I have the time concepts down so far is to give an idea of how long they take to go in between each step.
Okay.
Like, obviously, a general strike isn't going to happen on June 1st. That's That's pretty obvious. Everyone is probably going to be homeless unless Congress decides to do something. Like that's the
Yeah.
that's the reality of what we're looking towards. Okay. Well, going up from there, because I did start it to go from March 22nd to June 1st, and that's like basically how long it would take to have so it take roughly 3 months for each of the networks to put forward legislation, come up with a way to make sure that people are taken care of, get sort of used to working with each other, because you're going to have people that aren't used to talking. I mean, you could be in the same room with Nick Fuentes. How do we make sure you guys don't kill each other?
Good question.
Like, I mean, that's the truth. That's the truth. So that would be like problems. And then I think 3 months would be enough time to go through, because you're going for a goal. So you have to stay goal focused to do that.
Yeah.
The reason why I think the strike should at least plan for being 30 days is because, I mean, we saw that our country can survive 30 days. The economy can't survive 30 days without intervention.
Right.
And so that's kind of what we'd be blowing a gasket into, is the economy. And they're not going to answer to us. They're going to answer to their donors if the economy blows.
So I have a question, because here we've had in Oregon specifically a lot of people, rightfully so, pissed off at our governor because we've had shutdowns and like we haven't been taken care of. And so if they're like small business owners, how do we convince them to get on board with this?
Simple. Have them, like, this is where the networking comes in. This is where talking with the organizations, the local communities, and being like, how do you make sure you don't go out of business in the meantime? Well, if they're still operating, but they're operating in like a way that's like productive for the community. So it depends on what the business is. Like, let's say you're a franchisee store and you have an obligation to the people to do so. You're going to go open. Yeah, you will be hurt if you go open. Strikes are not easy. Strikes are not nice. Strikes are none of that.
Yeah.
If you close, just be like, I'm closing, because even though that's the case, they might not close in the first week. They might not close in the second week, but by the third week, with no one coming in, they're going to have to look at their books and be like, do I stay? Do I go? Do I join? What do I do?
True, yeah. And enough pressure.
And that's the thing. And I mean, I get it. You're looking at pocketbooks. You're looking at people who haven't worked in maybe a year now, because it's been a year. It's been a year.
I know. God.
But in the same breath, you could look at stores like co-ops, and you can look at stores that are big business stores. The big business stores, they'll be hurt just as much as the small businesses if they don't have workers there.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole point of the organization and the networking, and where businesses could come in to help, is they could close their doors in solidarity with them, and they could work with the organizations with what they have and their skills. Because people will need food, people will need housing, people will need clean water, people will need access to healthcare, which, I mean, every part of where our government's failed, organizations and nonprofits, they've been there to pick up the slack. So that foundation is already there, but it's going to involve small businesses, like you said, joining that. Mm-hmm. And you don't actually have to do healthcare stuff. Like, I don't know what you guys do for a living, but let's say, Maddie, you do nails. So
how do you know?
I love it.
So, I mean, you could be working on your skill, your trade, doing nails, so and so, to help people in the community. Because I know you're probably a professional at doing nails, Maddie, so you can probably tell it more than me. But nails can tell health. Nails, the skin of it can show diseases, and the study of all that work. So it's not just beautification. There's more there. Also, let's say you are a franchisee owner. You've been doing books for 30 years and getting screwed over. Would you rather stand with the organizations who will support you during this time, and you can just use your booking skills to help them manage everything? Or do you want to keep on seeing everything go downhill? It's that take a hard look in the mirror, say, yeah, I'm 30 pounds overweight, my boobs are saggy, and I don't look how I did when I was 21. It just that honest to God.
I love you. This is awesome.
Are you talking directly to me?
I felt like she was
or-
talking to me. Aw.
No, I can't see anything behind those beautiful sunglasses, Maddie. I'm not talking
To touch on what you were saying, like that's a hard not I don't want to word it as a hard sell, but that is always the tough thing. Is like, take somebody for example that wholeheartedly believes that we should do a general strike, but that same individual, and there's millions and millions of people in this situation, if they miss 2 days of work, they're fucked. They don't
I
want to
just got my
continue.
dream job. I love my dream job, and I struggle with that same idea. Like, even though I'm all gun for it, and I'm like, I know it'll work, I struggle with that same idea. And I'm like, I just got this really nice job. It makes a lot of money, but it's like, it goes back to the whole idea of individualism versus community. Like, if when this network is here and it's built up, and let's say the healthcare network, I'm like, well, maybe I can talk to the people in the healthcare network and see where I go and how I help my community. And or do I keep on going with how it's going and just say, hey, I survive, but fuck you guys.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was saying, like, as far as like selling it to people that are on the daily worried that they're going to lose their job. It's like they don't want to continue this cycle of living paycheck to paycheck for a shitty company that they hate just to survive. But they're also equally, if not more, afraid that they might not even have that if they were to stand up. You know what I mean? So it's like I understand that fear, and like, how do we overcome that? I know the networking thing 100%. I'm on board with that as far as having each other's backs and stuff. But how do we alleviate that fear for like just the everyday working Joe that is terrified that they're going to lose their house if they make a noise,
So this is where the networking connects to the general strike, the legislation, and passing legislation. Because if there's enough people in favor of this, the legislation is guaranteed to pass once the national vote is held to amend the Constitution. A general strike is a faster way of getting that legislation needed to pass. And then just doing a national vote afterwards to make sure the legislation doesn't pass. The point of networking and making sure that that structure and foundation is there is so when the bad stuff does happen, the community, the national community, the community that includes the territories and the occupied places, doesn't allow that suburban mom in Minnesota to fail.
Okay.
And so those organizations come together and be like, okay, so this is the place near you where you can use, there's water. Like, we can even just have like a water distribution system, everyone involved, they get food on their doorstep once a week while the whole process can take place. Because you're talking between, at max, it'd have to last between 2 years after a national vote. So it could be 2.5 years, which is still before Joe Biden would go for his reelection campaign. So that's kind of it. I mean, it's a hard reflection and it's a tough pill to swallow, but
yeah,
you're also making sure that people are taken care of. Like, I know there's plenty of farmers. I mean, maybe you'll see a lot of people from New York that do become homeless go out to Kansas and wind up living on farms there because there's shelter there. promise it'll all work out good, but I can promise and guarantee that if this goes through, we can pass those pieces of legislation. That is my only guarantee.
Well, the networking sounds like the mutual aid that's going on here, as far as like when the wildfires were happening, or just like for feeding our unsheltered community. There's like a bunch of networking going on behind the scenes, and then people come together, whether out in public or anonymously, to help feed the community or shelter the community or whatever. So it
Exactly.
is possible, like she's talking about.
Yeah. So what?
But
What
there
are the
isn't-
what are the next steps? Do you think, as
Well-
far as getting this out there, other than stuff like this? Like, what are your next steps to get this ball really, really rolling?
The Free Speech Network, they have the biggest audience.
Okay.
They have millions of people that watch their shows. They have people that follow. And I say free speech, I'm not just talking about journalists. I'm also talking about commentaries. I'm talking about people that just do video games and have a million viewers on there. But even you'll hear them say this all the time. I can't upset the YouTube gods. They're going to cut this off if I say this one thing. And
Really?
I'm like, yeah, these are people with millions of views.
Well, I didn't realize it was hitting anybody besides like people that covered politics, to be honest.
No, this is people that are hitting video games, people that,
Oh,
but you'll see a breastfeeding video completely like out there and no one says anything.
right. Right.
Yeah, and so that's sort of the thing, and those I can see being more the hardest people to get a hold of, because these people they're already probably making a couple tens of $1,000s a month off of their YouTube careers. But like, what do they do after if you guys are kicked off and YouTube's still censoring?
Right.
Self-preservation's gonna kick in. They're gonna be like, okay, and then next thing you know, all there is like tight, like turtleneck sweaters with like a cleavage hole or something.
True.
So glad I didn't buy that.
Oh, Jesus. You know who else would absolutely, I'm assuming, would absolutely love this is, I would guess, Ron Placone, because he is all about like eliminating censorship on the internet. I forget how he words it. Do you remember?
He words it a few different ways.
He words it really
sums it
well.
up.
That's not how he says it, but this is a way to get that passed too, a direct way to get us to free speech on the internet too. So
yeah, especially too his interest in like public utilities, publicly owned utilities. It's all
thank
relative
you.
in a
That's what I
way,
was talking.
because like if we all have a say in the matter, then there isn't that feeling of insignificance as a citizen.
Yeah, I felt
that
like these
makes
went
sense.
hand in hand.
Yeah.
I tried to, I reached out to him on the other part with the general strike. I have not reached out to him on the free speech networking, but maybe he could help me clear it out a bit more, because right now it's more of this like really rough idea. It's not really polished off at the moment.
Yeah.
But that would be really good.
Yeah. We'll send him this video, okay?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure he could make more sense of like what that would look like, as not only he's in the scope, he's been targeted on by censorship, but also he's an advocate for not doing that. So yeah, maybe he'd be a great, like I'm sure he doesn't have any time, but if he did have time, maybe he'd be a great leader for this whole thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, just write the theme song for it.
No, but
He
has done stuff for, I believe he was volunteering for like something with his city as far as the censorship goes. So like he is active in his community. So you never know. It doesn't hurt to reach out. I mean, we've now met because of Sharif and Graham, and that's how it works. It's cool.
It's true. That's true. I would love it if you guys send a video, and I'll send them a couple messages.
Yeah, for sure.
Were there any other questions? Did I forget anything?
Did you have anything for her? You
lot of
explained
info.
it so well.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, thank you for opening our eyes a little bit, or making things a little clearer as far as especially the process, how that would go.
Yeah.
The nerd in me is excited for this to be over just so I can read more about it. But you answered a lot of questions. You cleared a lot of things up, and yeah, it's good stuff.
One more time, what was that book that you were recommended to read?
The Failures of Representative Government and the Solutions. And that's not failures of the Republicans, it's actual like representative government and how that fails. Because Rome fell with the representative government because they put all their money in the military, which is kind of exactly what we're doing.
Yeah. Exactly.
I wanted to, so there's the petition to hold a national vote, which I would love to get the Gravel Institute involved with that, because that's kind of their whole thing, is to finish his life's work, which is legislation.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's 3 pages that explain, one, what direct democracy is. There's one for the amendment to the Constitution and the Legislative Procedures Act. And then there's this amazing interview by Dak Brullo on Overwritten about Mike Gravel and the book Failure of Representative Government and the Solution. And that's really where I got all of my education. I will link all of that to you guys in the chat really quick.
Perfect. And I will put it in the description box of the video when we post it.
Thank you.
Of course, thank you. Real quick, are you also including a link to the, what am I trying to say here? The petition.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Wanted to make sure everybody signed that.
Yeah.
And to the audience, if you guys can send this to Ron and Graham and the Gravel Institute and whoever else, like spread the word, share it everywhere, tag them in it.
Or even if any right person's looking on here and just putting troll comments, please pass it to all of your friends too.
Yeah, absolutely. This is how we get to work together and not have to deal with the people that are in charge right now. So
I am on board.
let me shrink
Okay,
this.
I believe that is all of them. Thank you for having us on today. Hopefully next time if we do this, Sharif can make it.
Yeah,
That'd be
that'd be fun.
He is a blast.
Part two.
Thank you so much for coming on. And thank you again. I know I was kind of a pain in the butt to get a hold of, but thank you for not letting go. I'm glad that we got to do this. So
Absolutely. Thank you again for having us.
of course, make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and support the channel on Venmo, Patreon, sign that petition, and check out all the links below. Medicare be with you.